If you grew up abused or neglected, you have a higher than average probability of becoming an alcoholic. Now, part of that is probably genetic, you inheriting alcoholism from a parent who drank alcoholically, and if they did, you were very likely traumatized by their drinking or by their drunken behavior that leads to the neglect and abuse of kids. So there's a lot of theory out there by people like Gabor Mate that all addiction is from trauma. I don't know about that, but I do know that trauma in the past leads to a very high rate of alcoholism. And you can apply this to drug addiction as well. I'm going to talk about alcoholism specifically because that's who I'm going to be answering a letter from today. But the drinking and the neglect and the hurt that you went through as a kid may have developed your own tendency toward being vicious. This is a common way that anger leaks out of people who have PTSD. Not everybody. Not everybody gets angry, and not everybody with alcoholism, gets vicious, but it is one strain of behavior. So viciousness, cruelty, and these two behaviors so often go together, drinking alcoholically, lashing out, that it can generate just a huge pattern of problems in your life. And the problems will accelerate faster than you can fix them. But there is a way to change that. So my letter today is from a man I'll call Stephen, and he writes, "Dear Childhood Fairy, I wanted to see if you could talk about shattered, broken friendships. I made the mistake in my past that I ruined relationships that meant a lot to me. In the past, alcohol and my self-sabotage pushed me away from my friends. I want to rebuild those friendships, but I know the damage was done. I had a situation where early this year I was very close to a group of friends who were once my co-workers. And this was when I used to work as a barista," he says. "I made the wrong choice one day where alcohol and my self-sabotaging cost me my job and my friends. They completely cut ties with me, and I was devastated to where I isolated myself and continued a negative cycle for months. While I was isolating, I met a new group of friends who meant so much to me to where I felt valued and I felt like I mattered again. However, I still continued the pattern where I wasn't myself and I still sabotaged myself without me knowing the consequences. That is, drinking, venting, emotional dysregulation." Yeah, good. "All of this while I was living with my abusive narcissist mother. My mother finally had enough of me and told me to leave and never come back. I decided to pack all my things and move to a whole new state independently. I feel very alone living in a new space rather than reflecting on my past. I was very traumatized and still continued the negative cycle with flashbacks, nightmares, and more dysregulation that many people, including my new group of friends, who I speak to a lot online, couldn't handle, and they stepped back from me. I felt like everyone was giving up on me at that point, and I was being too clingy. 5 weeks ago, I found your videos, and I decided to shift myself into growing as a person." That's beautiful. "I became better because I have a better mentality than I was before. I want to rebuild my broken relationships to be stronger, but I look back at my past and notice how damaging I was. I finally admitted to my mistakes, and I really value this new group of friends so much. I don't want to lose them, and I don't want to repeat the same pattern I fear." So I followed up with Stephen, and I just said, "Hey, thank you for your letter. I'm putting some thought into this. One question I have is around alcohol. Can you tell me more about that? Do you think you're an alcoholic? And whether yes or no, have you tried not drinking alcohol before or tried sobriety in AA?" So Stephen said, "Hi, Anna. Yes, my drinking can be very destructive, and I've tried noticing that my drinking was a reason I push people away. I've quit, and I'm still attempting to quit. Few bumps in the road sometimes. My father is an alcoholic, and I always say I won't turn into him, but this year alone, many mistakes happen. After seeing your channel, I knew I shouldn't be drinking because every time I have, it was never a fun experience." All right, thank you, Stephen. I will help as best I can here. So I see this a lot. Now, I'm not an alcoholic, but boy, do I know them well. I grew up with a bunch of them in my family, and I've had them as partners and friends, and I spent years in Al-Anon and in friendship with whole communities of alcoholics, sober and drinking. So I have a lot of experience with this, and I've learned so much from alcoholics because it was a sober alcoholic woman who taught me the daily practice that saved my life, that I now teach to everybody here, which, by the way, I'm going to encourage you to get into. We'll come back to that, all right? But in your letter, you say, in the past, alcohol and self-sabotage pushed you away from friends. So you have, I guess that's what you call a mean drunk, right? I don't mean any disrespect, but that's like the common word for it. I know very, very well that alcoholism is a sneaky thing that comes and gets you, and it's the experience of hundreds of alcoholics in my life that they really were powerless over it, that it was something that sort of snuck up on them. It had a grip on their lives before they knew it. There was nothing they could have done to stop it. And when people do get sober, so many of them describe it as a miracle. And that doesn't mean that it's impossible. It's this amazing thing. I know everybody who watches these videos isn't into 12-step recovery. And if you're not, I don't know if this video is even for you, but the friend who was a sober alcoholic, she suggested I read the big book of AA. That's the basic text of Alcoholics Anonymous, even though I wasn't an alcoholic. She showed me how to do my daily practice techniques, which are part of the 12 steps, actually, which I've adapted outside of that so that anybody can do them. And she said, read this book, see what it's like. And that book spoke to me so powerfully. I stayed up all night till I had read the whole thing. Well, the first half of it. The second half is a bunch of stories. I didn't read those on the first night. I read those later. But the first half of it is so profound. I had never heard anything describe both what I witnessed in the alcoholics in my life. You know, I had my immediate family like largely died of alcohol and drugs. And so for the first time, that book told me what it was like inside the mind of an alcoholic. And I hear from people who have alcoholism, and Stephen, I think that's what you have. I do think that's what you have. I notice you're not saying the word, and maybe you're scared of that word, but it's actually like a lovely word that just sort of explains things and helps you know, oh, I have a mind like this. And alcoholism, with or without the drinking, has certain stuff that goes with it. It's often connected to trauma, first of all. And there can be this like deep social discomfort, this sense of disconnection from people, a craving for that fun and bonding and, you know, love that we have felt sometimes while drinking. I know so many alcoholics who maybe resisted identifying as an alcoholic for a long period of time, resisted going to 12-step meetings, and then you're always going to see comments here where people go, oh, it's a cult, it's terrible, I went there and some guy hit on me. And to that I say, you need to get to another meeting. That's what would always be the case. It's, you know, it's a free program where people who come there, they only come there because they have real problems. So you can't go there with this expectation like, oh, these are just all a bunch of like doctors and therapists. They're not. They're a bunch of people who have what you have. They have what you have. They understand. And some of them are quite raw on the edges. And sometimes there are people who will, you know, pursue others in relationship in a way that's not healthy for them, harmful to the other person. But it's a community. And for those who come and are serious about trying to learn the 12-step way of life and to get sober, there really is help available. There are really incredibly wise and experienced people who are sober themselves, who have helped many people through the journey. And I just can't emphasize enough that I think you're missing out. I think you're missing out if you haven't really given that a try yet. I detected in the language when I asked you concretely about, are you an alcoholic? Have you tried to stop? And have you tried AA? And you were a little vague on all of it. The stopping, it sounds like you have a normal type of alcoholism where you can stop for a period of time, but not really, not for very long. You know, that's really normal too. What my friend who showed this to me, and she's like very, very alcoholic. She's been sober for 30 some years, but she said that when she first drank alcohol, it was the feeling she'd always been looking for. And when she first got sober in AA, before she learned how to do this writing and meditation every day, that when she first got sober in AA, she still had a lot of the intense emotions that had gone along with her drinking days. She would feel intensely uncomfortable in meetings, angry, alienated, feeling like nobody could relate to her. And I'm telling her story for her, but I just need to right now. Normally, I let people speak for themselves. But what she said, that really spoke to me is that she needed a way to feel good right now. She needed to feel good the way alcohol made her feel good. And that doing these techniques that I now teach like over 100,000 people have taken my free course on this. I'm just saying, like a lot of people who are traumatized, alcoholic, not alcoholic, like all kinds of people, even those without trauma, can get relief from using these simple techniques where you can get the distressing thoughts out of your mind and onto the paper. So much of what it's like to have CPTSD is that you have these like grim thoughts, these stress thoughts, these anxious, worried, angry, hateful, raging thoughts. And they can't help but come out of your mouth sometimes. Now, when I was first recovering from what we now know as CPTSD, I didn't have a name for it, it was suggested to me, like, don't drink, because like you, I don't know, alcohol brings out my worst side. I don't have alcoholism. I can drink and then like not drink. I don't really care whether I drink, but when I do, if I'm feeling bad, if I have a lot of like, undealt with like anger and grief and stuff, I'm going to feel more angry and more sad. And so that's not everybody's experience with alcohol. And I think what I've heard alcoholics say is that when they drink, it just feels like, yay, I feel so much better now. And it's just that there are these terrible side effects where it stops working, it starts causing health problems, it ruins relationships, finances, next thing you know, everything's gone to hell. So it's this thing, it's a temporary fix. It's a temporary fix, and it's so understandable why somebody who has that sort of like genetic and spiritual makeup that alcohol does the trick. Of course you're going to go for alcohol. But as you've noticed yourself, it just brings out the worst in you. It lets your CPTSD like out of the cage. And so the solution here is temporarily, it's better to put your CPTSD in a cage by not drinking than to just let it hurt people. But better yet is to heal your CPTSD and to start calming all the triggers, all the experiences, the memories, the outbursts that start coming out. You can start to calm them, not by suppressing them, but by expressing them, not verbally, which, for so many of us is just re-triggering, but by writing them. And I think that's the genius of where, the 12-step program does have, like, you take a searching and fearless moral inventory. And that is the origin of the techniques that I'm showing you about how to write your fears and resentments, ask for them to be removed, and then drop into a very restful meditation so that you can then, just have a little break from all those thoughts. Here's the thing, you're human, and you're a human who may in fact have alcoholism, so guess what? Your fears and resentments come back. So that's why it's a daily practice. It's not like a one-time thing. It's like I wrote it all down and then I was cured. I wish it were like that. But it's not, and I'm living proof, I just have to keep going with it. I did it this morning. I did 3 pages today. I felt like I was done after like a page and a half, but I was like, I could still feel like my head from the night before was still kind of like stressed, and I just had this like stress going on, and I wanted to have a good day. I knew I was going to be making videos today. I was going to have some important meetings, and I want to be creative, and I want every day to like be good. So I just said, I'm going to go ahead and write some more. And often the key to me getting freer is to really get the fear and resentment on paper, to be very specific. And I'm telling you, it's a specific technique. Don't just write a bunch of stuff. That can make it feel worse. I have a course. It's free. You can take it for free. You can learn it in less than an hour. And I've just upgraded and expanded it. There's a link to it down in the description section. And every video that I publish has this link to the daily practice. It's listed on my courses page. It's listed on my free tools page on my website, crappychildhoodfairy.com. So I just really want to put in a plug for that. I have techniques that can really help feel better. And the alcoholic woman who taught me this has helped maybe, 1,000 people to get sober and free and happy using this technique as the steps, as the 12 steps. There are people do it in different ways, and this is how they do it. And I have never encountered a happier group of sober alcoholics. And that's what they all said, that like getting sober was just like, oh, so all of a sudden like everything bothers you. And it's a way that you can start releasing all of that to start to get free. There's a lot of room, like What is your spiritual belief? There's totally room. The people who showed me, they discouraged like going just on belief. They're like, go on experience. Does it help you? Because when I started, I was just like, I'm not going to do some God thing. But I got better so dramatically, so quickly. I was like, wow, there really is a higher power. There really is. You don't have to believe that. Just have your own experience. Just give it a try. Take this free course and see what happens. And then, and this is true for anybody out there with alcoholism, if you learn this and you like it and you're having trouble staying sober and you would like to connect with alcoholics who do this, we know some and we would be happy to connect you. So hello@crappychildhoodfairy is where you can write to us about that, but I ask that you get the daily practice going first and decide if you like it first before we go to that trouble of connecting you with somebody. It's a rather big service to do anonymously, all over the world, and we would just like to know that you're compatible with this, what we're doing here. So try it. There's no way to find out if it works for you except to give it a try. So I encourage you to do that. So I jumped ahead. I just wanted to talk about some of the things you said. You moved away to get away from where you had blown up your friendships. And now you're alone in this place, and that sounds terrible. And you had been living with this abusive narcissist mother, so that totally fits the pattern of what you're describing are your struggles. And so now you're just having all the symptoms, the negative cycle, the flashbacks, the nightmares, more dysregulation. You can heal this. You can heal this, Stephen. And I'm here to give hope. And I'm saying something very different than what a lot of people out there are saying. A lot of people are going to tell you, you need to talk about it, you need to medicate it. And I'm like, I don't know about that. I'm not a doctor or therapist. I'm going to suggest you learn to write and meditate, to release the thoughts and then heal and calm the brain that's generating those thoughts, that's got the trauma going on, and allow it to re-regulate. From a re-regulated place, so much is possible. From a re-regulated place, you have more choices. Now, I know, with alcoholism, people are, there's nothing you can do to have perfect control over yourself. But I know many, many people who have, 10, 20, 30, 40 years sober. And it's through this method, through healing the distressing thoughts and continuing to hang out and connect with other people and do all the things that 12-step says to do, be of service to others, show them how to do it themselves. You're not there yet. All you have to do is show up and express a desire to stop drinking. That's all you have to do at an AA meeting. And so you saw my videos and you wanted to be a better person. That just makes me so happy, just because it's a sign. I've done so much effort in my life to do this or that or work or teach people. And when somebody responds to what I'm teaching and just ends up with a desire to become a better person, I know I'm with my right people. I know I'm in the right place. That's how we all know, is that our efforts to help land somewhere. Anybody who's tried to help other people knows you can't help everybody. You try, you fail, they don't want it. Mostly they don't want it, or they say they want it and they give up. All of that's fine. I just, I've been doing this so long, I just totally let people be where they are. But just because it made you want to be a better person, to me, that's a spark of the divine. The divine was transmitted to you. And I'm happy for you, and it's beautiful to witness. So you said you have a better mentality and you want to rebuild your broken friendships. That is such a sign of goodness, that you want to rebuild your friendships. So here's the good news. AA is all about that. There's a lot of ways that people deal with bad things that happen to them in this world, a lot of therapeutic approaches. But I will say that what I love and always go back to with the 12-step way of life is that there is, without trying to shame ourselves or anything, we learn. And I had 28 years in Al-Anon, which is a 12-step program, so I've done this all the time too. We learn to find where we have some part in the problem. So when you drink, your trauma wasn't your fault. Even your drinking is probably not your fault. But what's happening for you is your behavior is hurting people. So whatever the cause, whoever's fault that was, blame is not really going to serve us here. We just notice that you are the agent of hurt here, and you will have to find a way to stop hurting people. And you can. In taking responsibility, this is where the 12-step program has the 12 steps are all about it. The first 3 are about just admitting there's a problem, and I hear you just about on the verge of being through that. Like, you can't quite name it yet. You don't quite want to identify with it, but you know it's hurting. You're having trouble controlling it. You're so close, Stephen. You're so close to the beautiful point of surrender. Then you can start to put on paper, all the harm. They say searching and fearless moral inventory. And that's just all the things we've done to hurt ourselves, to hurt others, the way we've hated, the way we've panicked, all of it. And you might say, oh, well, panicking, how is that a moral problem? But that's the language. That's the language. Just like when we get into fear, which is panic, which is anxiety, when we get into resentment, that's anger, that's lashing out. When we get into those things, it's hurting us and other people. And I want to just draw to your attention, when you can't be you, when you are stuck in your trauma-driven stuff, the whole world suffers, because you're actually, meant to be here contributing in the special way that only you can. Every person, every life is important. Your life is important. Who you are has magnificent potential and goodness in there. So your job now is to share it with us. Share it with us. Unearth it, support it, and share it with the world. It's a service to all for you to recover. And as a recovered person, and who's been through what you've been through, you have experience that somebody is going to hear you, and for them it's going to be the first time that anyone ever described what they've been through. And I have the pleasure of people telling me this sometimes, that they heard me describe my experience, and they go, nobody's ever described what it's like before. And I am able to describe that as a result of years of doing this daily practice, unearthing, getting so much more mental clarity, and having, as you do, that natural desire to set things right. That is a beautiful and good thing inside of you, and it's entirely hopeful that you have that. Means you're in there, your spirit is intact in there, it's struggling under some conditions right now. But you have a problem. Like, some people have terrible incurable diseases. Some people have mental illness that nobody knows what to do about. Here's the good news. You have alcoholism, and we do know what to do. And millions of people have recovered from alcoholism. Isn't that wonderful? Like, it's a thing, it's one of the most horrible things that causes so much grief in the world. And yet there is a solution if you can find it. And you can't always command it, I will find it now, but you must try, To find it, you must try. So I'm putting it out in front of you to go check that out. So you're worried, so you started drinking again and pushing them away. And there it is. It's like, this is what they call in AA research. You did your research. If you moved away, could you do better this time? And you could for a little while, but then it got you again. So it's there. It's there. And you have bumps in the road. You've pushed people away. Your father was an alcoholic. That's so common. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you do drink and have friends, it's never a fun experience. So that's the thing. It stopped working. I bet it used to be a lot of fun. It used to be like, I'm relaxed now. I don't feel so self-conscious. This is great. And then it's just not fun anymore. And it's not fun losing everybody. And yes, that is how we end up alone, is by pushing everybody away. And a common reason people do that is because there's alcoholism going on, addiction as well. And then there's people who just act like that, like me. I don't have those problems. I've just spent years pushing everybody away. So I do understand that. So if anybody's relating to this topic and you just want to hear a little bit more about the technique, I know I'm always talking about it, but so many of you haven't taken it yet. So I'm just going to put up a video where I talk a little bit more about how it works in a general sense. You can learn about it if you decide to, or you can jump right in and take the online course, which explains everything, like, how did I discover this? How do you do it exactly? There's a whole bunch of FAQ, and it'll set you up. And if you take this course, this free course, you'll get emails from me inviting you to free calls twice a month. And it is my joy to do those calls with people. And they come from all over the world. I think today, I have a call lined up today, and something like 500 people are signed up. Half of the people come who sign up, which is totally fine. You can sign up and then realize you're not in the mood, or you can't do it and not come. We don't record them though, so you must come to enjoy it. And if you love coming to daily practice calls, many of you do. I've met so many of you in YouTube land this way, which is so nice. But if you really love it, come on into my membership, because we do peer-led daily practice calls multiple times a day. People who do the daily practice, who have been trained by us to run the calls. in the membership community, you can join those too. So there's a lot of support for you here. It doesn't cost a penny, and we'd love to see you. So my next video is about the daily practice. It's right here, and I will see you very soon.